And welcome into the Wednesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home with the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley here with you. That is not Joe Rexrode. That is Adam Vingan here this morning. Ian Safar with us as well. Vingan, good morning. Happy early morning to you. What's going on?
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here bright and early. I don't have a good Joe Rexrode impression, but
It's probably good.
Pearl Jam, gout, gout, gout.
Nice. That was pretty good. That's better than you gave yourself credit for. That was good. Ian, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Just happy to be here.
We're all happy to be here today.
Absolutely.
A little bit of a schedule twist this week with little Stilly on vacation. So Joe will be doing the 3 to 6 time slot today with Paul Kuharski.
Oh, that's going to be good.
So I'm sure that nothing will go wrong there with Rexrode and Kuharski together for 3 hours this afternoon in Stilly's time slot, which I'm sure Kuharski won't mention at all. I doubt that'll come up at all today.
How many pot shots at Jared will Paul take today? Let's set the over.
I'm setting the over under 7.5.
Ian, what do you think? Over under 7.5.
7.5. I'll go the over. I'll take the over.
Yeah, I think I'm taking the over too.
I'll take the over in the opening segment.
All right, okay, that's good. Yeah, maybe the over under should be 38.5. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. Joe and PK going up later today from 3 to 6. So I think Chase and Big Joe are back in their normal spot today from 9. They're going until 12, and then Willie and D-Mace will be together from 12 to 3. So got a lot coming your way
Triple
today.
D today.
That's right.
Instead of DVD.
Yeah, it is.
Derek, Donick, and David.
Triple D.
Triple
there you
D.
go.
Yep.
Like you said, it's only DVD when you're there.
Correct.
You're the V. So there you go.
I am indeed the V.
We got a lot to get into on the program here today. Nick Suss from the Tennessean will be with us at 7 o'clock. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Mark Ross from the NFL Network will be with us at 8:30. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Adam Vingan's got a rant later in the program as well, so looking forward to that coming up at 7:45. But Adam, we begin. It is one of the most fascinating days of the sporting calendar to me. And we go through this every year, but today is officially the NFL schedule release day. By the way, we know one opponent, or opponent is not what I'm getting to. We'll get into that here in just a second. We know one game for the Titans and when it's going to be. According to Jordan Schultz, the Titans are opening up against the Denver Broncos on the road. So Cam Ward, Bo Nix on the road for the Titans in Denver to open up the season, and then we'll find out the rest of today. Today is an amazing day because people really care about this, and we've known like who the opponents are going to be for a while now at this point, but people love NFL schedule release day, and I get it to a certain degree. Like if you're trying to go on the road, like you can, then begin to determine when you're going and what that's going to look like and start to plan all that. But it is amazing, like the pomp and circumstance, Adam, that goes into this day when you know what the opponents are going to be and have known for a while now.
This is exactly why the NFL has us buy the grapefruits, because something like the schedule release. And again, as you said, Robbie, it would be one thing if we didn't know the opponents. And today we learned not only who the Titans were playing, but when. Think of it like Selection Sunday, for example, in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. If we had no idea who the Titans were playing this season and we were going to find out today, that would be incredibly exciting. We've known who the Titans are going to play this season for 4 months. Now we just know what order they're going to play those opponents in. So it just goes to show how the NFL has taken over the calendar. There really is not a point in the 12-month calendar where the NFL does not have our attention, whether it's the season itself, NFL draft combine, the draft, free agency, OTAs, training camp, maybe that 5-6 week period in the middle of the summer between the end of OTAs and the beginning of training camp. That's really the only time where the NFL doesn't have a stranglehold on our attention. So kudos to the NFL. I believe NFL Network is going to be showing the schedule release this evening. It'll do big ratings. Yeah. People are going to tune in and watch it. But as you said, reportedly, the Titans will open the season on the road against the Denver Broncos Sunday, September 7th at 3:05 p.m. Central on Fox, if you care about which channel it's on. that would be an interesting test for Cam Ward, playing against arguably the best defense in the NFL, led the NFL last season in sacks by a wide margin, 63 sacks by the Broncos defense, 9 more than the next closest team, the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, and by the way, the Broncos have the reigning defensive player of the year at cornerback in Pat Surtain. So we might learn a little bit about Cam Ward, but you brought up something funny before the show, Robbie. You were talking about how Marcus Mariota had a perfect day in his debut, how Will Levis had a perfect day in his debut.
I kind of want Cam Ward to suck in week 1.
To temper expectations.
Yeah. Let's just change it up a little bit. We don't need every quarterback stepping out there in their first start looking great. It hadn't worked out so well for the last 2.
Right. So maybe if Cam Ward is bad in his first start, things will turn out better.
I'd feel great. If he's bad that first week, I'd be like, okay, I feel pretty good about this right now. Cool.
I did feel good about breaking news to a listener yesterday. He wasn't aware that we also, not only do we know the opponents already, we know which teams are coming to Nashville and which games are going to be on the road.
Yeah.
So the texter said, I can't wait to find out where the Titans are playing the Patriots. It's like they're playing them here.
Yeah,
he was like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's
so
happening here.
Mike Vrabel back in Nashville. So here's my quick question for you, Robbie. How many nationally televised games do you think the Tennessee Titans get this year? So Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night. How many games do you think the Titans are on prime time?
1.
One's
where I'm going.
I'm going to say 3. My specific predictions are 2 Thursday night games and the Monday Night Football doubleheader where they're the crappier of the 2 games.
Okay.
Like last season when they played the Dolphins on Monday Night Football and beat Tyler Huntley. So I'm going to say 3.
Give us more of that.
That's my prediction. 3.
Okay. Yeah, it's the Titans. I know they got the number 1 overall pick. I heard Chase and Big Joe talking about this yesterday of like the primetime games. Chase is kind of more towards you where he thinks they're going to get 3. I think Joe thinks they may not get any at all. So we'll see how that goes.
When I think about Thursday night games, I know they are technically primetime games, but they're never the most exciting games. They're like, all right, which mediocre teams can we put on TV?
Yeah, like I kind of put them in their own category. I mean, look, it is primetime. You're the only show in town that night. So, I mean, it counts for sure.
But how many times do you turn on the TV? You're like, oh, it's Thursday night. Let's see what's on.
Yeah,
oh, it's the Browns and the Dolphins.
I'll put it to you this way, like Sunday night, number 1 typically is a pretty good game. So my TV will always find its way on the Sunday night football game for the most part, unless it's, Arizona and Carolina or something like that. But for the most part,
that is a quintessential Thursday night game if I've ever heard.
For the most part, my TV finds its way on Sunday night. I've got Prime so I can watch the Thursday night games, but frankly, like Thursday night, I'm busier throughout the week. So if it's not a good game on Thursday night, I'm probably not watching. That's where I come down. And I know there are some people that it doesn't really matter what game's on. They're going to be watching. There's an NFL football game on. They're going to be watching. And that's great. I mean, that's part of why the NFL is the monster that it is because people care to that degree. But like I would throw out there, like how many Titans fans actually care about having primetime games? I think some do. I would fall under the category of one of those who do not care. Just tell me when the games are, and let's see if you can go win a few this year. That'd be where my focus comes down on. I don't really care if it's played at noon, 7 o'clock at night, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Go win a few this season.
Justin on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, I think we will play one Thursday night football game, but we will be in the midday slot a lot due to playing the NFC West and AFC West, because the Titans will play the Chargers at home. They'll play the Rams at home, the Seahawks at home. They'll be at Arizona. They'll be at Denver. They'll be at San Francisco and Las Vegas. So you'll see a lot of 4:05 Eastern starts, I think, for the Titans this season.
Yeah, like I think there's this thought out there also that with Vrabel coming back here, that one can be a primetime game. And I'm not saying it won't be. I'm just asking the question. We care about that here, and obviously Titans fans care about that, and the Patriots fans, he's their new bright and shiny toy, so they care about it. Like nationally, how much buzz does Mike Vrabel returning to Tennessee actually generate? I would argue not a lot.
Probably not.
So Is that going to be a
That was me
prime
doing Mike
time game?
Vrabel.
That was pretty good. Is that going to be a prime time game at that point? Again, that depends on what your definition of prime time is.
No,
like I personally view Thursday night football as a whole lot different than Sunday night football.
Patriots Titans has noon on CBS written all over it.
Right.
I think we here in Nashville care about that game, obviously, but I don't think there are going to be a lot of people who tune into that game like, oh, Mike Vrabel versus the Titans. You used to coach them, right? Oh, that's cool. All right. What else is on? That's what I think most other people are going to be doing.
Skylar says, I don't care if the Titans are on prime time. Just don't embarrass us at noon, and I'll be happy.
They'll embarrass you at 3:05 instead of noon a lot this year, I think is what's going to happen.
It is NFL schedule release day. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans. We know one game time to this point. Titans reportedly going to open up the season in Denver, taking on the Broncos. An afternoon start here in Nashville time. So we'll take your thoughts on the NFL schedule release. Plus, we got a whole lot more Titans talk to get to this hour, revisiting some comments from Adam Kaplan on our show yesterday as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
schedule comes out next week.
Yeah.
Are you excited to see? Obviously, you know who you're playing, where you're playing them, but are you excited to see like the dates and do we get a Monday night game, stuff like that?
It always makes it more real when you have some dates to put to it and you have an order. And usually, you get to I look at like the first 3 teams, and after that, I couldn't even tell you who we play. You sort of focus on the start and you take it as it comes. But it's always good to know when and where you're playing teams, when your games are, what your travel schedule looks like. It just makes it more real. Makes it you're just one step closer to that actually occurring. But yeah, I'm always excited about the schedule release, and you like to see who you open up with and see what your first month looks like and what teams you play and where. So that's always an exciting time.
That's Brian Callahan last week, fired up about the schedule release coming today. We'll figure it out today. I love that. Yeah, it's always nice to have some dates put to it.
And then tomorrow, we'll all print out the schedule and go win, loss,
Oh, yeah.
win. It's tomorrow. Well, Ian is fortunately, not unfortunately, Ian fortunately doesn't have to do this exercise anymore. But I imagine that when Jared returns
Usually
on Friday,
is.
he'll
Yeah,
do his
he probably
expectations show.
Yeah, go through. Categorize.
And remember, as Ian knows, there's a difference between the expectations and the prediction.
That's correct.
Although I will say, we might need to do that later this week because Ian kind of nailed it last year with his expectation of the Titans.
I think you said
Ian thought they were going to be awful.
Did you say 5 wins or less?
I think it's less.
Yeah,
I think I might have said 4.
I think you said 4.
Yeah,
He ended up with 3.
Yes,
Ian was pretty much right on.
If I recall correctly, we did this exercise on our show, and I think Derek had them 9 and 8.
I do think they will be better this year. Cam Ward's going to be better than Levis.
How many wins?
So.
Many wins do you think Cam Ward is worth more than?
Well, let's think about that from last year. And again, like each year is different. I understand all that, but how many more games do they win last year if the quarterback play just isn't atrocious? I would say at least 2 or 3.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely win the Bears game.
Yeah.
In week 1.
Maybe the Jets game.
The Jets game.
Yeah, and I mean, those two were a combination of
a Jacksonville game.
Yeah.
It was like 10-6 or something like that.
I've already
right?
laid it out. They better not lose to Jacksonville this year.
So at that point,
You
you
can't
already,
lose those two
if you give them one of the Jacksonville games plus the Bears and Jets games, that's 6 wins.
Yeah, like that's what's going to be interesting to see. Like if Cam Ward, look, I don't have expectations that Cam Ward is going to come in and just be electric, but can he avoid like just the colossal mistakes that we saw at quarterback last year? Because if he can, I mean, you're probably looking at a couple more wins there anyway when you just totally avoid disaster like they did last year. So
well, one thing I did see, according to the NFL, the Titans have the 4th easiest strength of schedule in the NFL this season.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how that plays into Cam Ward's success. The only teams with easier schedules based on opponent win percentage, the Patriots, the Saints, and the 49ers. The Titans are at 450. The Patriots at 429, the Saints at 419, and the Niners at 415. The hardest schedule in the NFL belongs to the New York Giants at 574.
Good for them. That'll go well for them, I'm sure. I mean, the thing is, like, you look at the Titan schedule, and you got Jacksonville twice, which we all know they always do. But, I mean, you got the Saints on there. You got the 49ers. I have no idea how good the 49ers are going to be this year. And they should be better than the Titans. Cleveland is on there. Are they going to be any good? I mean, there are some winnable games that they've got on their schedule. Of course, then you've got Kansas City coming in, and you got the Chargers coming in, and they're going. It's an NFL schedule. There are going to be some weeks where they're just totally overmatched from a talent standpoint out there. But like even the Patriots, like I know everybody's excited about Vrabel up there. Patriots weren't very good last year, so the Titans are going to have, I think, some navigable games on there. Going to the Raiders. Geno's their quarterback now, but there's some really interesting games on there from the Titans standpoint as to like if Cam Ward comes in and is good, can you put yourself in a position to win some of these games?
Chris on our text line says, let Ward get sacked and hit 718 times and see if he can throw the ball. Let's compare apples to apples now.
We'll see. Like you said, I think we're going to get a pretty good look.
Well, Levis was week one.
Yeah.
That was before he got hit 1,000 times.
Yeah,
that was the first game of the season.
That is true.
Well, by the way, he didn't get hit all that much in the first half of that game. and they
Second
were
game of
moving
the
ball
season
pretty
wasn't
well.
much better either. I mean, this
Yeah.
is early on. This is not like he's been battered all year.
No, Will Levis is not good. And I don't know why we got to keep coming back to the Levis part of it. Like, Levis is not good.
But the Broncos defense, again, is arguably the best in the NFL. Led the NFL in sacks last season, has the defensive player of the year at cornerback. It's going to be an incredibly tough test on the road for Cam Ward in his first start. And I do think, to your point, Robbie, from earlier, I think we'll get a realistic view of what the Titans are. I'm glad they're playing a solid opponent in week 1 versus beating up on another also ran.
Ron on the text line says, if Shedeur Sanders is the starter, maybe that might be a primetime game for the Titans going up against Cleveland. The thing is, like, I don't think you're going to know that right now. Right now, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starter, right? I mean, he may eventually get into being the starter at some point, and there's always, flexing options for the NFL later in the year. But
who's going to be the week 1 starter for the Browns?
I guess Flacco, right? I mean, I guess it could be Pickett. Old baby hands out there. Did you see the picture floating around Twitter last weekend of like they just did a still shot of Flacco holding the football, and then right next to it was Pickett holding the football, and
I
like the
missed that
difference in
one,
hand size is pretty hilarious.
I missed that somehow.
Everybody talks
cheek size.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody talks about the Kenny Pickett's hand size all the time. He can't even hold on the football. So I don't know. Like I guess it'll be one of those two. The real question is, are they going to carry 4? You carrying 4 quarterbacks into the year?
I would have a hard time imagining them.
You drafted Dylan Gabriel in the third round.
Gabriel, yeah, exactly. And I don't think Sanders is going to be.
Do you want a rookie as your backup?
Probably
to Flacco,
not, right?
Unless you're just willing to do the quick flip flop.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you traded for Pickett. I know you didn't give up a ton for him, but you traded for Pickett. So are you just gonna cut him, right? Is it gonna be Flacco and then the 2 rookies after that? I don't know.
I guess you can send Deshaun Watson somewhere. Like, he'll be on the team, but he won't be on the team.
Right. Like he's gonna be on IR, so he's not gonna really count against all that. But like this is just further evidence of what I said at the time, and it's basically been confirmed since then. Nobody's outright said it, but like, this was a Jimmy Haslam pick. He saw Shedeur Sanders there in the 5th round. And Jimmy Haslam said, yeah, go do that, which is why when you saw the draft reaction of everybody in the Browns room, it was like, oh, yay, we got Shedeur Sanders. It was, just took a quarterback in the 3rd round. Now our owner made us pick one in the 5th round. That's exactly what happened.
I wonder which home game Titans fans are most looking forward to. I would assume it's the Patriots because of the return of Mike Vrabel. But outside of that, I'm wondering which home game Titans fans are looking forward to seeing the most.
Well, the home schedule this year is obviously the AFC South opponents, so Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and then you've got Kansas City, the Chargers, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Saints.
Some interesting games in Nashville. I did say this to Willie the other day. So the Savannah Bananas were in town over the weekend.
Yes.
70,000 at Nissan Stadium. Cam Ward runs out the tunnel, his first experience at Nissan Stadium. Cam ain't going to be like that, brother.
It's electric in here. My goodness.
Maybe cut that by a third. Maybe that's what you'll get.
Maybe not early.
First game.
Early people will be there, right? Like, it's the number 1 overall pick. It's a new quarterback. It's new hope. Now, if they're bad and the time, things flip around in November, number 1, you're going to see a lot of opposing fans in there because that's what happens here. And 2, he could get a little light at that point, which is going to be interesting. Like, in all seriousness, I am interested to see like when that New England game is from this standpoint, because I always leave room for Amy Adams Strunk to do something a little bit crazy. And if the New England game is in like November, so it's deep enough into the season where you've got a pretty good idea if your team is any good or not. Like, if they're not good and New England comes in here on like November the 11th or whatever it is, and they beat them, like, does she fire somebody after that? I'm like, it would be one thing if it's week 2, like if it's like the Titans home opener, it's difficult to fire someone in week 2. So I don't think even she would do that.
I imagine Brian Callahan is like, please don't schedule Patriots in week 2. I mean, and please schedule Patriots in week 2.
You need
please
to be like
schedule
your first
in week 2.
home game. Yeah.
It's like Patriots week 12. Oh, crap.
That could set up poorly.
Yes.
The timing could be bad.
Absolutely.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Interesting comments from Adam Kaplan on our show yesterday as it relates to the Titans, their structure, and the patience of their owner. We're going to get into that coming up next. Take your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. Again, Joe will be with PK this afternoon from 3 to 6 here on 102.5 The Game, which people in the YouTube chat are very excited about. So
I'm glad that Rexrode could sleep in. He's going to need it. He's going to need that energy for Paul for 3 hours.
Yeah, there's no way he's awake right now. None. He told me yesterday, he's like, I hope to listen to the last 30 minutes of your show tomorrow. Thanks.
Well, you can also listen to what you missed wherever you get your podcasts, Joe Rexrode.
Do we think that Joe knows how to open a podcast?
No.
Okay.
I like to make fun of Willie and Derek because to me, the ultimate sign about whether or not you're tech savvy is if you know how to take a screenshot on your computer. Willie and Derek do not know how to take a screenshot on their computer. So Willie one time was doing something and he was holding up his phone to the screen. And I said, Willie, what are you doing, man? And I had to give them a tutorial on how to take screenshots during the break. So Rexrode is absolutely I take a picture of my computer screen on my cell phone.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, you were going earlier over like your Rexrode impressions, and people in the YouTube chat were like, yeah, you're going to have to mute yourself if you want to do a Rexrode impression.
I have not muted myself yet.
Yeah.
There is still time.
There's a lot of time. Could be happening.
Pearl Jam, gout. What else does Rexrode like to say all the time? How about Pearl Jam, biscuit, gout.
Been throwing the word fart around a lot lately, Ian.
Yeah, I heard him say something like that. I said, did Rexrode actually just say that on the air? Then I realized he didn't say what I think he said.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
Yeah, slipping them in there.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
I'm going to leave little messages for Rexrode over the course of the program when I know he's probably not listening because he's sleeping to see if he goes back and listens to the podcast
I
afterwards.
think you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Oh,
Adam Kaplan was with us yesterday here on the show, and we brought up a lot of different things with him, Titans related, but an interesting point that he made on the structure that the Titans have in place and whether or not Amy Adams-Strunk is going to be patient enough to allow this whole process to come together. Here's what Adam Kaplan from Sirius XM NFL Radio said on our program yesterday.
There's a lot to unpack here, okay? I know where I was when Robinson was let go. I was shocked because, as you know, she extended his contract, I believe, in February of that year and then fired him in October.
Yep.
That's unheard of. You know, this is my 27th year of covering the NFL. I've had a lot of crazy text messages. I got a lot of, like, what are they doing in Tennessee, you know, for personnel people who are shocked by it. So that goes to your point. She's very unpredictable, but I'll say this much. You can't say that she's not willing to pay personnel executives. Let me just explain kind of what's happening here. So you know about Chad Brinker and his promotion of president of football operations. He's an overseer. Mike Bergonzi won 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs. He's the general manager. Dave Ziegler he's their assistant GM, won 3 rings with the Patriots. Dan Saganu, the VP of Player Personnel, who's, by the way, really talented. I know that he didn't win a lot there, but from what I'm told, he's really good. Reggie McKenzie, who I mentioned, who's the football advisor, right? Former Raiders GM, won a Super Bowl as a personnel executive with the Packers. Scott Cohen, who is John Harbaugh's right-hand man for 9 seasons with the Ravens. He's the director of strategy now for the Titans, who won a lot with the Eagles and Ravens. So here's the thing, guys. They got a lot of guys who've won before. If these guys could get along and they're allowed to do their job without interference from the owner, there's a chance this thing gets turned around a lot faster than maybe I thought or you guys thought. And by the way, not that they're going to make the playoffs this year, but you saw what happened with the Commanders last season. You get an elite quarterback. No one saw coming what the Commanders did last season. Let's be honest about it.
So that was Adam Kaplan on the show yesterday. And Adam, a couple different things on there. Number one, now he did say Robinson, got the contract extension in February and was fired in October. Robinson was actually fired in early December. But the overall point of that still remains, it was a few months that went by and Amy Adams-Strunk and her viewpoint totally changed on John Robinson. Kaplan lays out kind of the structure of where the Titans are at right now in their front office and correctly points out, they've got a lot of people in there that have been a part of a lot of winning that has gone down. Now, most of them are in elevated roles. Now, Reggie McKenzie, Dave Ziegler have been in elevated roles before in there, but Mike Borgonzi, it's his first time being an actual general manager. Chad Brinker being elevated to this spot where he's basically the football czar of the Titans here. So it's not quite the same as just or as simple as, well, they've all won a lot. They're in different roles, so we'll see how they handle that. But what do you make of what Kaplan said about their structure? And if Amy Adams-Strunk is patient enough to let this thing all come together, maybe the Titans can get back to being competitive maybe quicker than we think heading into all this.
If Amy Adams-Strunk is delegating to Chad Brinker, and I believe Chad Brinker has said on more than one occasion that he is empowered by Amy Adams-Strunk to speak on her behalf. I've said this before. She either needs to be all in or all out. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to, if you want to be an absentee owner, there are a lot of absentee owners. Not every owner needs to be Jerry Jones or Steve Ballmer with the Los Angeles Clippers or how Mark Cuban used to be with the Dallas Mavericks. Not that Amy Adams-Strunk was like that at any point. But if you want to be an absentee owner, you have to stay an absentee owner. So when things aren't going well, you want to hide, that's fine. When things start going well again, you also need to be out of it. That's my stance on it. So, I mean, my prediction would be that, once the Titans turn this around, she'll be back out in front and doing the tailgates and shaking hands and kissing babies. And I don't love that. I think if you're going to be the owner behind the scenes, you need to stay the owner behind the scenes. And in terms of the structure of the organization, I don't pretend to know everything about Reggie McKenzie's and Dave Ziegler's managerial careers, but it does feel like there are a lot more adults in the room, which is a good thing. I didn't feel like Ran Carthon had that. So I, in theory, I like what the Titans have done, bringing in a lot of experienced voices. And I know Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker have talked glowingly about that experience. But when it comes to Amy Adams-Strunk, I'm like, you're either in or you're out.
Right.
And so if you want to remain on the sidelines, that's fine. But when things start going well, I need you to stay on the sidelines.
Well, I look at it this way. She has made a drastic move with this franchise for basically 3 years in a row, right? Like we went through it with Kaplan there. She fired Robinson, and then she was all in on Vrabel, and then she fired Vrabel, and then she was all in on Rand, and then she fired Rand. So that's what it's been around here. And now Chad Brinker, even before they hired Mike Borgonzi, as they were going into the search to replace Ran Carthon as GM, was talking about basically patience and how it's going to take a while. He didn't outright say it's going to take a while to get back to being competitive, but he did say like they're going to be pretty methodical in the way that they do things, and they're going to build through the draft. And if you're reading between the lines there, you're coming away with, all right, he's saying that this is going to be, a multi-year process to get back to where they want to be. Now, we all know that the quarterback can be an accelerant to that. Like if Cam Ward comes in and is really good, you can be a lot better, a lot quicker than maybe you originally thought with your timeline. So we all know that. But my question still is, like, I need Amy Adams-Strunk to prove it to me that she can do that. Like, I still wonder, like, in full disclosure, I've said this. I thought last year when it was becoming pretty obvious that they were going to fire Ran Carthon, that they should have gone ahead and fired Brian Callahan, because I was tired of having the coach and the GM on two different timelines. And I thought with as bad as last year was, the best move would have been to just pull the plug and start completely over if you were going to go ahead and fire Ran Carthon. Now, obviously, she didn't do that. I'm not overly impressed with what I've seen with Brian Callahan to this point, but now you're bringing in a quarterback. So I think a bad thing for the quarterback is to bring him in, have him learn a system, and then fire the coach immediately after this year. Now, as we talked about the other day, if it's just glaringly obvious throughout the year that Brian Callahan doesn't know what he's doing as head coach, then you got to make a move at that point. But beyond that, like, I would like to see him stick around. Like, I just wonder, it's one thing to have the plan, right? Like, they clearly, Chad Brinker has talked about it a lot, and they keep bringing up patience and kind of that slow build that they're trying to accomplish here. It's one thing to have that plan, and it seems like for the moment they've got Amy Adams-Strunk on with that plan based on what they've said. But what does the process look like when you actually live through it? That's going to be what it comes down to, is if you live through going 4-13 or 5-12 or whatever they are this year, barring some expectation that they just supersede that we can't see coming right now, where they're, a 7-8-9 win football team and maybe playing some meaningful games late in the year. If it goes the way we think it might go and they're just not very good again this year, does Amy Adams-Strunk actually display the patience that it looks like they've sold her on? That's my question.
History suggests, at least recent history, suggests that Brian Callahan will be fired this year. I looked this up last week, or was it earlier this week? Days run together. 5 of the past quarterbacks taken number 1 overall had their coaches fired mid-season in their rookie years.
Yeah.
5 of the past 7, including each of the past 3. Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, and Trevor Lawrence. Jared Goff also had his coach, which I believe was Jeff Fisher, fired during his rookie season, and Baker Mayfield as well. The only 2 that didn't were Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. So again, 5 of the past 7 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall had their coaches fired mid-season in their rookie years. So recent history suggests that Brian Callahan may not survive this season. But I agree that if you are committed to seeing this thing through and putting Cam Ward in the best position to succeed, I do think you need to marry the coach to the quarterback. So I think it was Blake Bedingfield in the story written by Teron Davenport said that he wouldn't make a coaching move for the next couple of years. And even if things don't go well, I would agree with that. I don't think it would be good for Cam Ward if Brian Callahan were in and out in his first season.
Oh, and beyond even the coach part of it, when you've put this front office structure in place, do you have the patience to let it all come together? Now, look, I'm not always overly impressed with Chad Brinker. And again, I don't know that I necessarily separate Chad Brinker a whole lot from what we saw from Rand Carthon last year, even though it's clear the organization is trying to. Chad Brinker was there for some of these decisions that did not work out well. So I'm still fairly skeptical about him moving forward. Look, I like everything I've seen from Borgonzi to this point. Now, it's been a very limited sample size on Mike Borgonzi, and they've gone with Cam Ward. So we all know that Cam Ward's success or failure is largely going to determine what happens with this front office here. But as they're trying to piece together a roster here, and they're trying to build up kind of that next core, do they have the right people in charge? That's going to be, I think, the fundamental question of where they go from here. We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. More on the Titans coming up next. We'll have Nick Suss from the Tennessean at 7 o'clock. All that ahead, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. The 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament benefiting Folds of Honor, presented by Gary Force Acura and Atmos Energy at Hermitage Golf Course, is coming up on Thursday, May 29th. You can sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Once again, 615open.com. Nick Suss from the Tennessean will be with us at 7 o'clock, covers the Tennessee Titans. We'll get into all things Titans with him. Taking your thoughts at the moment on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Do the Titans have the right people in place in their front office, and how patient will Amy Adams Strunk be with the current setup? Now, here's the other interesting part of this, and we brought up some comments that Adam Kaplan had on our show yesterday, and he went through all the different people that have been a part of a lot of winning that are with the Titans right now. And on the surface, that sounds great. There's also the question of, do they have too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, right? We've talked about that. Are there too many people that have a voice in the organization in terms of your decision makers? And we know this is a different sort of structure than you really see throughout the NFL. And maybe the Titans are on the cutting edge of this new power structure and way of doing things in the NFL, and maybe they're about to be groundbreakers here. But, the Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi dynamic. Mike Borgonzi, having Reggie McKenzie, Dave Ziegler in the room with him. Like, there's a lot of people there that I think are going to have a heavy voice and a lot of influence as to what they're doing. And if they, as Kaplan pointed out, if they all get along and work together well, that can end up being a really good thing. Or, is there going to be situations where that really strains things and there are too many cooks in the kitchen? I'm interested to see how that part of it plays out as they go along here. They've had one off season now. They didn't do a ton in free agency this time. They brought in Dan Moore, which was the most significant free agent move that they made, and we'll see how that works out at left tackle. As I said, the draft, Oladejo is intriguing to me. How good's he going to be? Obviously the two receivers they brought in the fourth round, but really the draft story of whether or not they've had a good draft this year is going to be Cam Ward. And that's largely what they're going to be tied to as a whole moving forward here. So they don't have a ton of moves that they've made yet to really speak of here. And we'll see how these newcomers impact things this year. But the structure of this and how that works or doesn't work is going to be really interesting to me as we go through the next couple of years here.
One texter says, Amy will fire the head coach halfway through the season with a winning record. So,
well,
we'll see what happens
there. She did
there.
fire a general manager more than halfway through the season with a winning record and in first place.
Mr. G says, good morning, guys. Mr. G here. My jury is out on Kim Ward. I assume he means Cam Ward.
Yes.
Unless there's a Kim Ward I'm familiar with. My jury is out on Cam Ward because I haven't seen enough to know if he can succeed at the NFL level. I'm absolutely convinced that the Titans do not have the right pieces in the front office. If Amy were actually patient, they wouldn't be in this mess to begin with. Well, one thing that I have appreciated from Mike Borgonzi in particular, and again, we don't have a whole lot to go off of. We have free agency and we have the draft. But the one thing that I do appreciate from Mike Borgonzi is that he is much more measured in how he is talking about this team. He did an interview recently on the Rich Eisen show, which, by the way, Rich Eisen moving back to ESPN.
Yep.
People were always, where is the Rich Eisen show? It was on Roku, I believe. Now it'll be on ESPN. But he had an interview with Rich Eisen, and he was talking, and Rich Eisen asked the quintessential question, what's your message for Titans fans? And he said, we're going to have to be patient. This is a process. We're just getting started. And I think the Titans would have benefited greatly from that type of message last year instead of Ran Carthon pretending that this team was going to be competitive.
Yeah.
Ian played we checked every box cut for Jared so many times that on DVD we have a list of banned words and phrases, and checked every box is banned on our program.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say that in any context. You're also not allowed to say the word generational to discuss a prospect on our program. There are other things as well that are banned from our program. But Ran Carthon painted the picture, and the Titans as well, that they were going to be a competitive team last year. And I think all of us were like, huh? Good luck. So I do appreciate the fact that Borgonzi seems to be realistic about what this team is going to be. This team is probably not going to be very good this season.
And frankly, they don't have to be. Like,
It would
look,
probably be better if they weren't, so they can pick at or near the top of the draft again.
Look, going through it is one thing, but like let's say this team reaches max capacity with the roster that they've got right now. What do I think their max capacity is? Like, let's say Cam Ward comes in and is just great. Well, then they'd probably make the playoffs if that's the case. Like, if Cam Ward is great in his rookie year, I mean, the quarterback play covers up a lot of things. But I just want to see them improve as the year goes on, and hopefully get to a win total at the end of the year that is better than 3, right? Like get to like 5 or 6 wins. And I know that doesn't excite everybody, but like if you think that they're just going to come in and go from 3 wins to 10 wins this year with the roster that they've currently got, which as we've gone over at the moment does not really have much of edge rusher. I have no idea what's going to happen with Jarius Sneed. Even though they drafted 2 receivers in the 4th round, I still don't love their receiving core the way it is right now. They got a lot of holes on this roster right now. So they don't have to get back in the playoffs this year. But can you show throughout the season, both from a coaching standpoint and with some of your selections that you've made with your draft, that you're going in the right direction? That's what I want to see from the Titans this year. Are you going the right way? And if you are, then continue to build on that as we get into next offseason and plug some of those holes and hopefully get a few more game-changing players via the draft next year. That's how you're going to get out. I mean, ultimately, if they're going to get out of this, yes, Cam Ward has to be really good, but you also, I think, have to find probably 2-3 more guys at very important positions, be that wide receiver, be that edge rusher, as they move forward here, that are dynamic players. And right now, they just don't have those guys. We'll see if Oladejo turns into one of those guys, but right now they don't have one.
One texter says, I mean, you could say they were competitive. They were leading at halftime in a lot of their losses last season, which to me means they're at least being competitive with their opponents just choked in the second half. Trevor says the real reason they brought in so many cooks in the kitchen is so that there's more people for the puppet master Brinker to point the finger at when things don't work out. I refer to him as the supreme ruler of football. But as I said, it appears that there are adults in the room. Again, I can go back and look at Dave Ziegler and Reggie McKenzie's draft record as general managers and point out their flaws in their success rate and all that stuff. I don't know all of that, but to me, as long as we don't have the distraction of Rand Carthon giving interviews to our next guest, Nick Suss, talking about the ball didn't bounce our way after we lost 54-0 or whatever it was to the Detroit Lions. I don't think you're going to get that out of Mike Borgonzi. So,
well, by the way, like I disagree that they were overly competitive last year. Did they have some good first halves? Sure. They lost by 10 or more points 7 times last year, which is hard to do in the NFL. Like, it's hard to get blown out in the NFL that much. So they were not overly competitive last year. And by the way, I say 10 or more points. I mean, that includes a 34-10 loss to Buffalo, 52-14 to Detroit, 42-19 to Washington. I mean, they got their butts kicked several times. I mean, Green Bay 30-14. They got destroyed several times last year.
They did. So at one point last season, I was keeping track of what the Titans' record would be based on the halftime score. And I was like, oh, it's not so bad. But yes, you do have to play 2 halves of football.
615-737-1025, our phone number, as Adam does pull a Rexrode and totally punches his microphone there.
I have done that a couple of times. I'm not
job.
used to sitting in this chair. I usually sit in your chair.
Nice job. Nick Suss from the Tennessean will
I haven't
be with
muted
us
myself
coming
yet,
up
though.
next. We'll get into all things Titans with him. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joe Rexrode will be with Paul Kuharski later this afternoon from 3 to 6 here on 102.5 The Game. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Nick Suss from the Tennessean, who covers the Tennessee Titans. Nick, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So we were just talking about kind of the structure of the Titans, and we've talked with you about this before with obviously Brinker, his role, and then Borgonzi coming in, and Ziegler, and everything they've got in place, Reggie McKenzie. And the question I keep coming back to is, will Amy Adams Strunk have enough patience to watch this whole thing kind of come together and be built basically from the ground up? So how do you view that? How do you view kind of the situation of where they are organizationally and the patient approach that it seems like they're trying to take?
I mean, there's no answer I can give here that isn't pure speculation because we just don't know, right? That's the thing is the last couple of years have felt like decisions were made on whims at times. And if that repeats itself, we don't know. We don't know when decisions are going to be made. But if we are looking at the structure for why is it this way, if this was set up to prevent that, if this was set up to say, look, the plan is to be patient, the plan is to have a long view, I think they've set it up the right way to handle that. Now, do teams with the long view pick the quarterback immediately? That's a thing we've spent 4 months debating and we'll probably debate for the next 3 years if this plan comes to fruition. But I mean, look, with Brinker, Borgonzi, Ziegler, McKenzie, et cetera, I think they went out and got people who are essentially worth being patient for. But the thing about patience is you have it until you don't have it.
Right.
So we will see if this team wins 2, 3, 4, 5 games again. Is that patience going to pay off? There's only one person in the world who gets to decide that. And so we can speculate all we want, but we don't know how everybody's going to feel until the results come through.
What have been your impressions of Cam Ward to this point in the limited interactions that you've had with him?
I'm always impressed with the things I hear about how he wins people over, how he can come in. And people talk about the leadership traits. People talk about that ability to get people on your side. I think he does that at such a remarkable pace that I think that's the main thing I've been fixated on. Like I was told a story recently, and I'm sure people have heard this before, but when Cam committed to Miami, the first thing he asked the recruiting coordinator was for a picture book of every single staffer on Miami's internal front office, essentially. And he wanted a name and a photo of every single one of them. So the first day he arrived in Coral Gables, he could shake everybody's hand and prove he knew their name. Like that sort of foresight and that sort of intentionality to wanting to be the face of a program, to wanting to be a person that everybody knows cares. I think that's the thing that stands out because I've heard similar things about his visits with the Titans of he comes in and the thing that people were most impressed by was that he cared to meet every single person in the building and that every single person in the building liked him and wanted to be around him. And that magnetic skill, we can talk about the way he throws, we can talk about the on-field talent, but I think that the central reason right now that he is a Titan kind of harkens back to he has those on-field talents, but there is some drive off the field that makes him want to be that leader, want to be that figure who can represent the team. And I think that's very, very important for these early days as he's trying to win over the veterans.
Nick Suss of the Tennessean joining us on Robby and Rexrode. Okay, Nick, here is a true or false question.
Okay.
Xavier Restrepo is the most hyped up, undrafted rookie free agent in Titans history, if not all time. True or false?
Just because I don't feel like thinking, I'll say true. I'm sure I could think of an NFL UDFA who has in time been a little bit more famous than him. But since it's 7 a.m. and I've been up since about 6:55 a.m., let's say yes. Let's say there's a lot of hype there. I mean, this is a All-American. This is a guy who was the all-time leader in receiving yards at the University of Miami. And it's not Michael Irvin. It's not Santana Moss. It's not Andre Johnson. It's not Reggie Wayne. It's this guy. Like, you got to give him credit for the productivity. He was more productive in college than Eli Kyle Manor, than Chimere Dike, and that built-in, connection he has with Cam Ward is obviously going to help. But there are also limitations on positionality. He's probably exclusively a slot, and to do that, he's going to have to beat out some veterans to get that job. I think the hype is warranted in a lot of ways. I like what I'm learning about Restrepo as I talk to people from down in Miami, but it's always an uphill battle when you got to win a roster spot over guys who got drafted. So we will see if the hype ends up being warranted, but I will say there is a lot to like about him.
So today is the day that a lot of fans have been waiting for. It's schedule release day, although we know who the Titans are already playing. We just find out when. And there has reportedly been one game on the schedule already. The Titans will open the season, again, reportedly, at the Denver Broncos. What do you think of that matchup for Cam Ward and his first career NFL start?
I mean, that's a really good defense, but the optimist in me says, well, he won't be playing in Denver in December.
Yeah,
if you're going to Denver, you want to go there in September. You want to go before the snowy conditions can kind of wreak havoc. So I think that is a heck of a test. That's a team that has, if not the most talented defense in the AFC, then certainly one of the 3 or 4 most talented defenses in the AFC, with the way the secondary's lined up, with the way they have some really good interior defensive linemen. It should be a test for the revamped offensive line. It should obviously be a good test for Cam Ward. You're going to play the Broncos at some point. You might as well open with a test. Again, schedule release is something so strange because you hinted to it. We know who they're playing.
Right.
We're just waiting for the permutations and all that. But I like this matchup. It's a little bit less likely to bury his debut at noon on a Sunday when there's 11 other games going on. I think that playing out west afternoon time slot, that is a fun little treat for Titans fans, getting to see Cam Ward and letting the world watch him together.
So, Nick, you brought up the revamped offensive line, and obviously they've been trying to fix this offensive line for years at this point, and we'll see whether or not they've done it. But number one, I guess, what do you make of kind of where things stand on that heading into the year, your confidence level on the line? And number two, we talk about Brian Callahan all the time, and obviously Cam Ward's going to have a huge say in whether or not Brian Callahan's still the coach after this year. But how much is the performance of the offensive line, in your mind, going to have a say as to whether or not Brian Callahan's still the head coach after this year?
I think that people are most aware of the most significant bruises on their body. So the Titans offensive line has been the reason the Titans have been the Titans these last 3 years. Like, the Titans have missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. And if we are oversimplifying why, it's been quarterback play and it's been offensive line. We can talk about other holes, we can talk about mistakes, these sort of things, but fundamentally, if you can throw the ball downfield better and if you can protect the quarterback better, Titans are better these last 3 seasons. So yeah, that's all it comes down to. I'm not going to say that if the defense is absolutely bonkers bad, then that's not going to play. But this regime was brought in to correct the mistakes of the previous regime. That's how all hires work. That's how all changes work. And so the previous era was defined by bad offensive line play, bad right tackle play, the mistakes in the draft that yielded Isaiah Wilson and Nicholas Petit-Frere and Dylan Radins and all of these attempts at patchworking the right tackle that didn't work. So if this moving Latham to right tackle experiment and this Dan Moore experiment and Skoronski and Zeitler and then Cushenberry coming back healthy, if this 5 doesn't work, yeah, that is a refutation of what the new regime is trying to do. Now, I do think you need to give it a little bit of grace. If it's week 1 and it doesn't work, you need to give it 4, 5, 6 weeks to see it kind of play out chemistry-wise. But yeah, I think this entire season can essentially be judged by, did the quarterback play get better? Did the offensive line play get better? And if not, what are we doing here?
Nick, great stuff, man, as always. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
Yep, appreciate it.
Nick Suss from the Tennessee and our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Interesting stuff there from Nick Suss, as always. We'll get a little bit more into the Titans coming up next. How can the Titans best go about bringing Cam Ward along as they get rolling this season? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Scheme wise, obviously, it'd probably be critical to make things similar to Miami. Like, how has that been, that process of Callahan just making you comfortable with the offense and making it digestible for you?
It's been the same, same route concepts, a little bit different footwork, but that's all comes with time and preparation. I got two, good coaches who continue to motivate me every day, and Coach Callahan, and Coach Bo, and so I think I got a good group of guys around me to help me as well. When I get a chance to meet the other quarterbacks in person, they'll continue to motivate me. I'll motivate them, and so I'm just ready, to put the pass on, get some time with the other vets when they get out here Monday.
That's Cam Ward on learning the offense here with the Titans, and the Titans going about making things as comfortable as possible for Cam Ward. Teron Davenport did a good story at ESPN.com about that and about the Titans trying to make things similar to what they were for Cam Ward at Miami. Some of the concepts that they're running, and you heard Cam Ward talk about it there. It's a lot that's the same, and they're working on some different things with the footwork part of it. But the Titans, it appears, really looking at what Cam Ward did well at Miami, trying to integrate some of that into their offense, which is good. I like to see the coaching staff trying to build an offense around their quarterback. So, Adam, as you hear that, you hear the Titans talk about that. Brian Callahan talked about that over the weekend of, they've got some concepts that are the same. Now, eventually, as Cam Ward grows, you're going to ask him to do a lot of different things in an NFL offense. But how do you view the idea of making things as comfortable as possible for Cam Ward in terms of the way that they're trying to structure their offense? And if you're the Titans, what's kind of the best way to bring along Cam Ward this year in your mind? What's your strategy for doing that? If you're the Titans and probably that he's going to play, because some people's best strategy would be don't play him. I don't think that's going to happen. I think in the world of realism, he's going to play. So what is the best strategy to bring him along in your mind?
I know some people, Jared, long for the days of top young quarterbacks sitting on the bench. That rarely happens anymore. The Titans didn't draft Cam Ward to sit him on the bench. That's why they signed Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, and they're not playing Will Levis if they don't have to. But in this story from Teron Davenport on ESPN.com, he mentions that the Titans hope to replicate the early success of Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud, both of whom won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And there is a quote from Mike Borgonzi from the Senior Bowl. Teron writes, quote, this is from Borgonzi, I should say, "I remember watching Daniels the first few weeks and they were running the football. I don't know if he threw the football downfield the whole time. There's a lot of perimeter throws, get his confidence up. They did a great job just in terms of bringing him along throughout the year." So I'm wondering if the early games of Cam Ward's career are rather boring for Cam Ward. A lot of Tony Pollard, maybe, if the Titans see what the Texans and Commanders did with Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud. But yeah, I've heard what Brian Callahan has said, marrying the concepts of what he did at Miami. Callahan did an interview from the owners' meetings with Kevin Clark of ESPN, and he was talking about his experience with Joe Burrow, about how he tried to make year one in Cincinnati, like it would have been year 3 at LSU, because Joe Burrow, played 2 seasons at LSU?
2 at LSU,
right?
Yep.
So he said that he tried to make year 1 in Cincinnati like year 3 at LSU. So I imagine that that's what's probably going to happen here, or it certainly sounds like that they're going to try to integrate as many concepts from the Miami Hurricanes as they possibly can. But based on that quote from Mike Borgonzi to Teron Davenport, wouldn't be surprised if you get a heaping helping of Tony Pollard and a little Tajay Spears sprinkled in there.
Yeah,
as well.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I've said it. I think being able to run the ball is a huge help to your young quarterback. We always talk about tight end, right? And tight end can be a really good friend to a young quarterback, just having a reliable option over the middle of the field. And I agree with that. Like, obviously you want to have good tight end play, but we brought up the offensive line with Nick Suss in the last segment, and we focus in so much on protecting the quarterback. And obviously that's a huge part of what they do. But if they're a good run blocking offensive line, like I think this one's got a chance to be, then I think you've got an opportunity here, if you're the Titans, to really lean into your run game And it doesn't mean that Cam Ward's throwing the ball 14 times a game. Like, you're going to need more than that in today's NFL. And hopefully as the year goes on, they trust him to throw it more and more. But I think, keeping yourself in games, taking a little bit of pressure off of your young quarterback that already has a ton to deal with anyway. If you can run the ball effectively, then I think that goes a long way in helping your quarterback. Like, I think everything the Titans are doing right now with every aspect of their team really needs to come back to the fundamental question of, all right, how's this helping our quarterback? Like, how is this helping Cam Ward? And I talked yesterday about how concerned I am about edge rusher and just the lack of options that they've got there. And people always think about offense when it comes to helping out your quarterback. But again, like, if your defense isn't any good and you can't get off the field and you're chasing the game all the time and your quarterback is down 10 points before you can turn around in the first quarter, that's not a good thing for your quarterback, like having to drop back and throw it all the time and constantly be behind in some of these games. So, like, to me, everything the Titans are doing right now really comes back to, how is this helping our young quarterback? And what are some steps we could take to maybe help him along that maybe we don't generally think about? Like, to me, it's more complicated than just how good are his receivers and how good can the offensive line pass protect. Like, if you're a good running team, that is a good thing for your young quarterback.
And I really did like the signing of Tyler Lockett. Willie, Derek, and I did this exercise in March, looking at the veteran receivers who were still available, and we ranked them all. And Willie and I both had Tyler Lockett at the top of our list just because of his durability and, his reliability. And now we did think about that same sort of thing with Tyler Boyd a year ago, and Tyler Boyd was a non-factor. But I do like the idea of Tyler Lockett. I do think that I think he's going to have a productive season. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. His production has been declining over the past few years as he's sort of been phased out of the Seahawks offense. But I could see Tyler Lockett being that security blanket, safety blanket, whatever you want to say, for Cam Ward. One texter on our text line says, what happens when Sean Payton in the Broncos offense goes up 17-0 against the Titans at halftime against their poopy ass Steve? Oop, I can't say that. Dump that, Ian. That poopy defense. Poor Cam Ward going to have to throw 25 times in the second half. That's my worry. See, that's a trick because the texter had two bad words right in the row. So I censored myself for the first one, but not the second one.
Watch yourself, Skyler, on the text line.
Yes, Skyler.
Yeah, like, I'm scared to death about that too. I talked about it yesterday. Like, if you're down by double digits at halftime all the time because your defense isn't any good, that's not a good thing for your quarterback. Now, look, hopefully Olade Joe comes in and can give you some meaningful reps as a pass rusher, right? Like, they got to have somebody that can get in there and get after the quarterback. And I know that Denard Wilson has talked about it, and he has a background of, generating pressure on the quarterback from different spots. And it doesn't just have to be edge rusher. Like, who knows? Like, maybe this is the year that Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat up the middle are just monsters together, and teams can't handle them up the middle. Like, you would take that, obviously. But I am worried about their lack of ability to get after the quarterback and what that's going to mean. And again, that's not only what that's going to mean for the Titans and their win-loss record and their defense, but also, like, does it put your quarterback at a disadvantage if your defense can't get off the field? And again, every time we talk about the defense, somebody will bring up, we'll go look at the numbers last year. Like, in yardage, they were a top defense in the league. And it's like, well, yeah, when your special teams is awful and you turn the ball over all the time and the defense starts with the short field, I think some of those numbers could be a little deceiving.
I think the discrepancy, I would have to double check this, but I think the discrepancy in terms of the Titans ranking in yards allowed per game and scoring defense, goals against, we're not talking about hockey, points against per game, I think maybe the biggest in NFL history.
It's massive. Yeah. It's totally massive last year. And, how much better is that going to get? And that's if things are, like people say, healthy, right? Like their defense, right? Let's say Jerry Sneed is out there and he's healthy. Okay. Well, what does that mean for this defense if he's out there the whole year? How does that help the pass rush if he's back in coverage? And also, frankly, like if they can't get pass rush, how much does that limit the effectiveness of L'Jarius Sneed when he's out there? There's just so much that goes into it on the defensive side of the ball that ultimately everything you're doing leads back to the quarterback and how can you best bring him along. We're throwing that question to you. What's the best way for the Titans to bring Cam Ward along this season?
By the way, the Titans finished second in yards allowed per game and 30th in points allowed per
It's tough
game.
to do.
I think that might be the widest discrepancy between those two rankings in NFL history.
That is tough to do. More coming up next on the Titans. We'll have an Adam Vingan rant later this hour at
Hot diggity.
7:45. Mark Ross from the NFL Network will be with us at 8:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com Get It All. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joe Rexrode will be with Paul Kuharski later today from 3 to 6 here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got some tickets to give away to the Outlaw Music Festival featuring Willie Nelson and family, Bob Dylan, and more coming up at First Bank Amphitheater on Wednesday, June 25th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to the Outlaw Music Festival coming up on Wednesday, June 25th at First Bank Amphitheater. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Andrew from Dover texting in says, let's say Ward is exactly who we hoped that he would be. He's comfortable. He makes history. And here are 2 receivers with 1,000+ yards this year. Who are those 2 receivers? I think one would have to be Ridley. Like Ridley, I think, would be a given.
Yes.
In that discussion. The other one is interesting. I don't think it's Lockett.
No.
Lockett to me is not. I think Tyler Lockett, I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. Tyler Lockett had 49 catches last year for 600 yards. If you told me that that's what he would do again this year, I would sign up for that right now. I'd be like, yep, cool. 33 years old. Tyler Lockett, sign me up.
I'd like
for 50 catches and 600 yards.
I would like Tyler Lockett to get to at least 500 yards. At least.
Yeah, for sure. I think.
But I think 1,000 yards is out of the question. He does have 4 1,000-yard seasons in his career, but that was several years ago.
A long time ago. I mean, he's going to be 33 on September the 28th. So I think that there's got to be some realistic expectations of what he is at this stage of his career. Who would the other receiver be? I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, it would be Io Manor, right? Now, I don't know that 1,000 yards for either one of those rookies they took in the fourth round this year is close to realistic. So the bottom line is if Cam Ward comes in and is great, you're probably going to have Ridley, assuming everybody stays healthy, at somewhere around 1,200 yards, and then it'll kind of be sprinkled all over after that. Would be my guess. How does Gunnar Helm factor into what they do? Does Chig have a couple of big plays that he can make throughout the year? Can Lockett give you 50 catches this year? There's different ways. Does Restrepo make the team? If so, what sort of a role does he play? But I don't know that, frankly, I don't know that looking at it right now, unless Io Manor or DK just come out of nowhere and are freaks right from the jump. And I think it may be more of a building process for both of those 2 guys. Ridley is really the only one I look at right now and think to myself, 1,000 yards should be the expectation.
There were 4 rookies.
Or anything close to it.
There were 4 rookies last season who had at least 1,000 receiving yards. Want to take a guess? And that includes tight ends. Which gives you a hint.
Trying to think of who was drafted last year. I don't know. You tell me.
Malik Neighbors.
That makes sense.
Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, and Brian Thomas.
Okay.
Were the 4 receivers with at least 1,000 yards. And I wouldn't put Alec Io Manor or DK on that level.
I'm not saying you can't be excited about those 2 guys.
Right.
Because I do think speed across, deep down the field across the middle, DK can give you some of that. I like Io Manor. I like Io Manor heading into the draft, and I think it's good that he was available and there when the Titans found him. Now, again, you are talking about a couple of 4th-round picks there. So if they were kind of those elite level prospects that you're looking for at wide receiver, they wouldn't be there in the 4th round. So look, you can find good players in the 4th round, right? One of the best receivers in the league right now came out of the 4th round, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. So it's not like you can't find guys there that can do that. I would not hold my expectation for either one of those receivers at anywhere near 1,000 yards this year in their rookie year.
Caleb on our text line says I assume Caleb means Tyler Lockett, needs to be pushing 700 yards. One texter says, I'd be happy if the 2 rookies, DK and Io Manor, combined for 1,000 yards. One texter says, Gunnar Helm and Restrepo, 1,000 yards. I hope he means combined and not
that would be so. Look, if Gunnar Helm and Restrepo both get 1,000 yards this year, then Titan team's going to be good in some good shape.
The Xavier Restrepo thing I find to be so fascinating, and I asked Nick Suss about this earlier. Because of Restrepo's rapport with Cam Ward, there's a lot of excitement about Restrepo. As Nick Suss said, holds a lot of records at Miami. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the other receivers who played at Miami, who we know from their time in the NFL, probably didn't stay as long as Xavier Restrepo.
Yeah, he's there 5 years.
So he's a compiler, not to take away from his achievements. But
His last 2 years there were really good.
yes,
Really good.
but I've seen enough slickly produced videos from the Titans of Cam Ward throwing to Xavier Restrepo. And the other day I had some fun by looking at the quote tweets of those videos. And one Titans fan said, 1,000-yard season incoming. And I said, I really hope you're being sarcastic, pal. But we'll see. Caleb chimes back in and says, Iomanner reminds me of Mike Evans. Hopefully he is half as good as Mike Evans. Adam in Portland says, Lockett hasn't exactly had an elite quarterback the last few seasons. I think his numbers are deceiving. He may still have some game left, kind of like DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, that's fair. Look, the other interesting thing with Lockett is he's going to be playing, it looks like, mostly on the inside this year as slot. Now, he is obviously, with his frame, I think he can do that, and he can be a guy that is effective there. He has spent a lot of time in his career on the outside, right? So I'm interested to see how the Titans move their receivers around. Like, I mean, you can move Ridley around. You can move him inside if you want to. You know, it does make the Restrepo, like, in all seriousness, him making the team. Like, how exactly do they view their group of slot receivers? How does Bryce Oliver factor into all this? Like, there's interesting decisions that they're going to have at receiver. You know, as far as the Iomanner Mike Evans comp, I don't know that I'd go there. Like, Evans is just a bigger guy, so I don't know that I would go there. I mean, Iomanner's got nice size. He's 6'2", 206, so it's not like he's small. If they could get, I'm with the texter that says if they got 1,000 combined yards out of Iomanner and DK, I would sign up for that right now if I'm the Titans. Absolutely. I mean, you're talking basically 500 a pop from those two as fourth-round rookies. I would take that and run with it right now if I were the Titans.
Would you take the over or under on combined receiving yards for DK, Iomanner, and Helm at 1,300?
I would probably take the under.
I think,
just being real.
Yeah.
I would take the under.
Yeah. I think combined they could get to maybe like 1,200.
I mean, again, I would take that.
And that might be
right now.
That might be
look, I mean,
reaching.
The truth of it is, those guys, I think they've got some traits to them that are interesting, and I think both of them could end up being effective players in the league in terms of the two receivers. Helm is interesting at tight end. I'm interested to see exactly what he's able to bring to the table in year one. His production exploded last year at Texas. So what's that going to translate to in the NFL? But, like, frankly, like, I look at their group of skill position players right now, at wide receiver and tight end, and I still think specifically at receiver, we talked about this building process that they're on with their roster. I think Iomanner and DK can be a part of it. I still think they're missing kind of that one breakout dynamic guy that's probably going to come at some point in the draft over the next couple of years, would be my guess. Like, they're going to need in the next couple of years here to draft one of those receivers pretty high, like in either the first or second round, that you feel like can be kind of your franchise receiver. I'm not saying that Iomanner or DK can't be that at some point. Maybe they can. I wouldn't bet on it as we're sitting here today. And I think at some point you're going to need to bring in one of those guys over the next couple of drafts here.
I would agree with that. And I thought maybe the Titans could find someone like that at the start of the second day of the draft. Luther Burden, for example, was available, but the Titans decided to trade down and get more picks. But yeah, we know that the history of Titans drafted receivers is littered with a lot of unmet potential. I don't want to upset people on their drives to work by listing them all, but you know who they are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that, look, that's got to be, as much as anything, as Vingan just destroys his microphone for the third time.
I'm getting used to this seat. It's very strange.
That was a violent display that you just put out there.
I'm ramping myself up for my rant, which we will do next.
Yeah, I just think the big part of this, there's a lot of things that have to go right for the Titans over the next few years as they try to build here. I still think they're definitely another edge rusher that needs to be drafted at some point. And I think there's more than likely going to have to be a pretty high pick devoted to a wide receiver at some point over the next couple of years. And that's if things go well. Like we talked about it yesterday, and nobody wants to hear this. Like, what if Dan Moore is not any good at left tackle? Well, you're probably going to have to draft a left tackle again at some point over the next couple of years here. So hopefully Dan Moore can come in and give you solid left tackle play where you can at least push that off for a while and not having to be worried about the offensive line for the next few years in the draft. That would be great. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Adam Vingan's got a rant coming up next. We'll do that. We'll get into a little hockey talk in the 8 o'clock hour before Mark Ross from the NFL Network joins us at 8:30. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant.
No!
Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Hello, boys and girls. Guess what day it is? It is Whiskey Wednesday here again.
I have not muted myself yet.
Yeah.
If Tom Brady farted and you put it into a fragrance, I'd buy it.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
I don't have a good Joe Rexrode impression, but
hey, Aminu, some say I had the perfect game against you guys, but I made a mistake when I stepped on you. I'm sorry.
Pearl Jam, biscuit, gout, gout, gout.
Duval.
We're going to stand by.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It is that time
That's
of the
why
day.
Ian is the best in the business.
He's awesome. That time of the day. Technically the Rob rant that is now being hijacked by Adam Vingan.
Sprinkled in some Christian Leitner, some P.D. Pablo.
We're bringing back Vingan's vitriol, as Brett and Franklin points out on the text line.
Yes. Here it is, Brett. All right, I'll keep it short. I actually have two. I have a main one and then a very quick side one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, so let's do the side one quickly. Pete Rose now being eligible for the Hall of Fame. Rob Manfred basically saying the quiet part out loud. He's dead now, so it's cool, I guess. That's basically what he said. I feel like Rob Manfred does this all the time. But yeah, basically, he put out a statement yesterday explaining the decision. And if you wanted to boil it down to is essence, it was, he's dead, so he won't be able to enjoy it. So we're fine with it. It's cool.
That's pretty much how it went. Yeah.
So a little bit insensitive there, Rob Manfred. But that was my side rant. Here's my main rant. And if you've listened to me on this station over the years, this is not something new. But I was reminded of it over the weekend. And look, the symbolic start of summer is almost here, Memorial Day weekend. It'll be here in a couple of weeks. And over the weekend, my wife and I and our son, we went to Cheekwood for Mother's Day. Beautiful day.
Very nice.
Beautiful grounds. Had a wonderful time. And a lot of other families there too. And I noticed something that just, it's a public service announcement to all of the men out there. All right? Under no circumstances, men, should you ever wear sandals, flip-flops, or any sort of open-toe shoe unless you are on your way to or on your way back from a water activity.
Wow. Okay.
If you are going to the beach, if you're going to the pool, if you're going to the lake, if you're going on a boat, totally fine. But in casual environments, wear sneakers. It bothers me. I don't know why, but it bothers me. And I think men should be banned from wearing flip-flops or sandals in casual, non-water-based activities.
You will wear steel-toed boots. Steel-toed boots is what you'll be wearing.
To the beach.
To the beach. Wow.
Kaharski.
I know Vingan felt this strongly about sandals.
Kaharski says, no side rants, one rant. I just got one in there, Paul, and I think you probably agree with me on the Pete Rose thing. But yes, I was reminded of this over the weekend because I saw a lot of men at Cheekwood wearing sandals or flip-flops or Birkenstocks. And I'm just like, guys, we don't take care of our feet the same way that women do. Put your feet in shoes.
I kind of view it this way. Like I always, if I'm out, need to have something on my feet where I'm prepared to one, get somewhere quickly and or kick someone's butt if necessary. So that's kind of the way that I view things. Like you're not really ready to go in sandals or flip-flops, right? I mean, I guess you could take the flip-flop off and fling it at somebody if you really needed to. Go barefoot.
Go
at that point. But yeah, like I don't even know that I definitely don't have a pair of sandals. I might have one pair of flip-flops available to me for the beach. But I think that's it. I think I literally bought them at like a Walgreens by the beach one time. That's why I have them.
Here's a loophole from one texter. Am I allowed to wear slides to the gym? Yes, but you have to be wearing socks. You have to be wearing socks with the slides.
See, that's where I thought you were going at first. When you started talking about the flip-flops and the sandals, I was like, oh, no, I had them with the Cheekwood, and all these guys are wearing socks with their flip-flops.
I do that. I do socks and slides at the house.
There you go.
Pretty often.
That's good.
Just around the house, I got that. That's no big deal.
One texter says, next time I see this guy out, I'm going to kick him in the butt with my Chacos. You mean your action sandals? Those are the worst shoes. The sandals with all of the straps and the things like that.
Did you have Crocs back in the day?
I've never had a pair of Crocs.
Really?
No.
I'm no Crocs, but I do have Chacos.
I used to wear, like, when the Crocs first came out, I had some, but the problem is like you can't really do anything in them, right? Like, I would try to, I'd have some Crocs on, and people would want to go play basketball, and I was like, well, I can't really play basketball in these Crocs. So then I just stopped wearing them. Like I've basically been exclusively either like boots, dress shoes, or tennis shoes since I was like 17 years old. That's basically how I've gone.
One texter says, or wearing them to jujitsu. Okay. I can find some loopholes. But my point is, if you're going out casually, you're going to a restaurant and it's June and it's 85 degrees on, put shoes on. Like, you will never catch me wearing sandals or flip-flops in public unless, again, I am going to the beach, or I am going to the pool, or I am going to a lake, or I'm going on a boat. I will wear slides to take the garbage out, but that's in the privacy of my own backyard. So men, my point is this: under no circumstances. And I know that some men, they take care of themselves. Some men like to get pedicures, and that's totally fine. I am not judging you for that at all. My point is, a lot of men don't take care of their feet. I don't want to see them. Put shoes on like a grown adult.
Kuharski just texted me and said, did you just say that you're always ready to fight with your footwear? Yeah, I'm saying you got to be ready. Like, I'm not saying that, I'm out there looking for an altercation, but I need to have some footwear on that if the situation arises, I'm prepared. I'm ready to go at that point. Or to get out of there. You never know.
Yeah, mine is more like,
someone says
driving somewhere, am I going to need to, like, if I get a flat tire?
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to be in some slides?
I mean, look,
with no socks on.
I'm kind of a lunatic. Like, you're talking to the same person that every time we get like a tornado warning around here, I'm like, well, I better put some shoes on in case my house gets destroyed and I got to walk out of the debris,
People are asking about Crocs. Well, Crocs, I guess the Crocs are closed-toe shoes.
They are,
right?
They're
so
just not. But they got holes in them, and they're not.
Your feet are covered.
They're just slippery,
right?
You can't see the toes as well. So if there are some, nasty toes out there, you can't really see them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't really.
You can hide your toe fungus in there
for sure.
Yeah. Austin and Franklin says, kind of like wearing sweatpants without pockets. Can't trust the guy that does that. He has nothing to lose.
Do those exist? Sweatpants, no pockets?
Usually there's at least one back pocket, right?
Yeah, you would think.
But
so that look, and we're getting, I feel like I've touched a nerve on our text line. A lot of people seem to agree with me, but like, by the way, what are they? Chacos? I call them action sandals. Those are the ugliest shoes I've ever seen.
They're comfortable. They're good for outdoor, festivals like Bonnaroo.
Yeah.
Perfect footwear for Bonnaroo.
Well, as Dennis, Dennis on the text line pointing this out, and he's absolutely right. Ever since I saw Die Hard, I always make sure to have shoes on. You never know. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't need to be walking around in bare feet.
He was in trouble on that.
He's in big trouble there. Yeah. You just put some shoes on. It's all good. You avoid that situation.
So this is my public service announcement. The weather is getting warmer. Memorial Day is just a couple of weeks away. Your local pools might be starting to open. You'll be heading out to the lake. Totally fine to wear sandals to those activities because you just want to flop them off and go in the water. Totally fine. But like, I'm like, part of me was like, as my wife and I were walking around Cheekwood and I saw men wearing flip-flops, I just kind of wanted to say to these women, I'm embarrassed for your husband.
Somebody said, look, if somebody wanted to fight me in a pair of sandals and they had some nasty toes that look like they're covered in fungus, I would not want to fight them. Maybe I need to change my strategy a little bit.
No.
Look at these feet. Ready to fight?
I just think that we would all be better off if we heeded my advice. I say that a lot on a lot of things, but when it comes to this is what I'm saying. As Andrew on our text line says, no grown man should be caught in Crocs like a toddler. I've seen a lot of teenagers wearing Crocs.
Oh yeah, apparently that's a thing now.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
My nephew, 14.
Yeah,
big. Although they do live in Florida.
It's
like whole new rules.
Does he have the little pins in them?
Pins in
them. Yeah. It's the new thing. I was at the movie theater a couple weeks ago.
Chicken jockeying?
And I saw that. No, it's the teenagers now that they wear the Crocs, but it's the pajama pants. Like it's the pajama pants Crocs combo out
with
in public.
Socks.
Yeah, with socks. Yeah. Like all the time. It's not like, oh, I saw somebody walking into Walmart at 9:00 at night with, some pajama pants on. That's fine.
One texter says, it sounds like Adam, but the takes sound like Stillman. How dare you, unnamed texter? How dare you? And one person says, I guess I'm taking my brand new Nike slides back now. I said slides are fine with socks if you're going to the gym or playing basketball or something.
615-737-1025.
I'm not backing down
Our
from
phone
this.
number, 615-737-1025. This has been Adam Vingan's rant, Vingan's vitriol. It struck a nerve with folks. Take more of your thoughts on our text line. We will get into a little bit of hockey conversation. There's one thing I've noticed as I've watched the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I don't think it's a very good thing for the Predators. We'll get into that. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, Ian Safar here with you. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode will be on with PK a little bit later today at 3 o'clock.
Did you see how
125, 106.3 The Game.
Kaharski referred to that show?
I did.
A day of relief.
A day of relief. Kuharski and Rexrode later today from 3 to 6 on 102.5 The Game.
Jason Joe from 9 to noon. Yep. Willie and Derek from 12 to 3.
There you go. Changing things up a little bit with Stilly out on vacation this week.
Jared takes a vacation and the whole station is out of whack. Meanwhile,
he won't stop tweeting about sports from his vacation.
Oh my God.
Dude, just be on vacation. Get off Twitter.
I told him that over the weekend because he had the take of all takes, man. It was an all-timer about Xavier Restrepo. Why do Titans fans want Xavier Restrepo to be a star? And the best part was at the end, he's like, who cares if he's Cam Ward's friend? He can make new, better ones. I'm just like, I had to text Jared and I said, look, you're on vacation. You're in a tropical paradise. You're with your girlfriend.
Just enjoy yourself.
I think this is probably the first time you've been away from your infant son since he was born. I'm sure she loves that you're crap posting about Xavier Restrepo from Costa Rica or wherever you are. Put the phone down.
Hasn't worked. He's still tweeting.
He did have one tweet last night that did make me laugh. I would like to give a shout out to Mikhail Granlund. Mikhail Granlund had a hat trick last night for the Dallas Stars, who are now up 3-1 on the Winnipeg Jets in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I did text Jared last night and said, if the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup, I am purchasing you a framed photo of Mikhail Granlund lifting the cup.
Yeah. I mean, they got a pretty good shot. They're pretty good.
The only ex-Predators player / employee who I think I would take greater pleasure in winning the Stanley Cup would be John Hines for Jared's sake.
Yeah, that wouldn't go well for Jared.
Ian knows how much I hate the Mikhail Granlund rule. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. and I almost fought Jared during the Four Nations face-off because, like, who's this Jake Sanderson? He must suck. I've never heard of him. And that was the game where Jake Sanderson scored a goal.
Was an absolute beast out there for Team USA.
And he's like, I love Sanderson. Shut up, Jared.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Granlund in the playoffs. So I'm watching the Cup playoffs over the last couple of weeks here. And number one, they've been pretty good to this point. I mean, the Stanley Cup playoffs feel like they always deliver. But this year's been really good. And I think we're probably headed toward a Dallas-Edmonton conference final here in the Western Conference, which I would probably describe this way as I think the best team taking on the best couple of players there. So interested to see how that goes. Edmonton got them last year in the conference final. It looks like we're headed there again this year. Looks like the Capitals are about to go down to Carolina. And then we'll see. We got, a massive Game 5 tonight between Florida and Toronto, with Toronto winning the first 2 games of that series, Florida winning both games at home. So that one may be a mammoth and go all the way to Game 7. We'll see what that looks like there. But playoffs have been awesome. And I'm watching the playoffs, Adam, and I keep thinking about it in the context of the Predators. It's like, all right, well, can this team actually get back here next year? Can you get back into the playoffs? And frankly, like with some of the elite teams, which when you get to this point, when you're deep into the second round and you're right on the verge of getting in the conference finals, you're talking about the elite of the elite. I watch them play, and I feel like the Predators are a long way away from that. I really do. Like I just – and look, I know that if you go throughout the course of the regular season, the Predators beat Dallas a couple times. I get that. They've had some success. Even in a year like this, they beat some really good teams. There's a difference between regular season hockey and playoff hockey, and some teams are just built for the playoffs. And Dallas, I think Dallas is a team that really doesn't have a weakness when you watch them play. And I keep trying. I'm watching all these games, and I'm putting it in the context of the Predators, and I'm like, all right, are they a team that actually can get back to the playoffs next year? And again, as Rexrode said yesterday, not just get back to the playoffs. Like, can you be an actual threat when you get there? And I look at the Predators roster right now, Adam, And it just kind of feels like, barring an absolute surge from older players and guys like Stamkos getting back to scoring 40 a year, or Marchessault returning to scoring 40. Like, it feels like the Predators just don't have the horses right now to keep up with these guys. And look, I know they just finished 30th in the league. So some of you are saying, well, no duh, they're a long way away. But I'm just telling you, like, if we get to the end of next year and they're out of the playoffs again, this fan base is going to be ready to fire everyone. Like, that's what it's going to be. So I'm trying to prepare people for that. Like, I think there's like this thought process that it's just going to be this slow go here, and that fans are going to be okay with that if that happens. I'm here to tell you they are not next year if it goes that way.
The NHL is becoming a star-driven league, like most sports. But when you look at the rosters of the teams who are still alive in the Stanley Cup playoffs, with the exception of Carolina and maybe Washington, these teams all have superstars. I mean, Alex Ovechkin, of course, the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. He's an older player, right? He's not
39.
He's not in his prime anymore. The Hurricanes, what's the saying? They're greater than the sum of their parts.
Yep.
They've got some really good players. Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov and Seth Jarvis, but they don't have that superstar. But
they had him for 14 games.
They did have him for a few weeks. But look at what Dallas is doing with Mikko Rantanen. And the Winnipeg Jets, they have their stars. I would put Kyle Connor in that category. The Panthers have plenty. Barkov, Reinhart, Kachuk, Bennett. The Maple Leafs have theirs. I know Austin Matthews is struggling in this postseason, but William Nylander's had a great postseason, and they still have Marner and Tavares. Edmonton, of course, has Draisaitl and McKinnon. Vegas has Eichel and Stone. The Predators do not have anybody in that stratosphere.
Not at this point in their career.
No. And look, Philip Forsberg, we know how talented he is and how many goals he can score, but it's not on the same level as any of those players that I mentioned. And the Predators haven't had, specifically at forward, a player like that in history. And you were hoping, if you were a Predators fan, that they would move up in the draft lottery and have the number 1 overall pick and have an opportunity to take that player. But of course, the complete opposite happened, with them falling 2 spots to 5th in the draft lottery. But until the Predators can find that type of player, I mean, Roman Josi was that type of player on the back end for several years, but it's really at the forward position.
Yeah.
The Predators desperately need that type of player. And they were hoping that they could squeeze more out of Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, and that obviously didn't work. So, I look at these rosters and study these teams that are still alive in the playoffs. And you're right, Robby, just the caliber of the roster up and down the lineup. I mean, you even look at some of the depth player, like Dallas is the prime.
Dallas
example.
is the extreme.
Yeah. Dallas is the prime example. I mean, Heiskanen just came back. Robertson missed the first round after he was injured in the season finale against the Predators. Matt Duchene, who I believe was their leading scorer in terms of points in the regular season, has yet to score in the playoffs. But Rantanen has been thermonuclear this postseason. Granlund had a hat trick. They've got that depth, that they've got that star power and that depth. I mean, look, ask the Colorado Avalanche, who have 2 stars, 2 bona fide stars, and Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, if they would like to have Mikko Rantanen now. So even when you have stars on your team, you can never have enough. And the Predators, they might not have any.
Well, and it's got me wondering, and I'm not talking about 3 years from now. I'm not talking about, what's going to happen when whoever they draft at number 5 overall becomes a big part of their organization, because there's time for that. And there's, we've had those conversations. But what about next year? Like, what about next year? How far away is next year's team? And frankly, is there anything Barry Trotz can do this offseason to change that? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
feeds it back for Granlund. There's Sagan, Marchment coming in. The Stars shoot and score. Mikael Granlund. He just took it himself right down Main Street. And the power play beat rolls on. Dallas has a 1-0 lead. Stars could break in with numbers. It's Granlund with hints. Granlund right circle. He scores! Make it 2 tonight for Mikael Granlund, who makes it 2-1 with Dallas back in front. Now it's Duchesne left circle. Off the bar, it stayed out. Heiskanen holds it in. Right side, one-timer score! It's Mikael Granlund! A hat trick! Let him fly!
Former Predator Mikael Granlund with a hat trick last night for the Dallas Stars in the playoffs. Playing with Matt Duchesne out there.
Just like old times.
Just like old times out there last night. Stars are on their way to their third consecutive Western Conference final.
Because when Connor Hellebuck leaves Winnipeg, he turns into a puddle in the playoffs.
Boy, is he sucked on the road. Good gracious.
9 consecutive road playoff losses over 3 postseasons for Connor Hellebuck.
Not very good.
No.
Not what you want.
No. Especially when he wins the MVP award in a month.
Yeah, which could happen, by the way.
That'll be a very strange acceptance speech if this continues and he wins the MVP.
I mean, he's definitely winning the Vezina.
Yes, he is.
Definitely. He could win our trophy. We'll see what that goes like. Got a lot of your questions on the Preds to get to, which all kind of center around this idea, Adam. I'm talking about next year. I'm not worried about 2 years from now. I'm not worried about 5 years from now. Next year. How far away are the Predators? And is there anything Barry Trotz can realistically do this offseason to close this gap, to get them back in a spot where they're not only competing for a playoff spot, but getting back into the playoffs and actually being a legitimate threat to do something once they get there? How do you view those questions as they head into this offseason and try to add to their team?
That's a good question, because Barry Trotz has said that he does not intend to be active in free agency, especially compared to last summer. And he's talked about hockey trades. And you know, the one thing that really changed the fortunes of the Florida Panthers was that Matthew Tkachuk did not want to re-sign with the Calgary Flames. And they traded for him. And they happened to have a player on their roster who had an MVP caliber season in Jonathan Huberdeau. Because I remember that summer sitting in with Jared for an hour talking about Matthew Tkachuk and what the Predators could put together in a package to entice the Flames to trade Matthew Tkachuk. And boy, were we off. Like, we didn't think it was going to take a player of Jonathan Huberdeau's caliber to acquire Matthew Tkachuk. And the Predators, you know, they don't really like, to use another Stillmanism, other teams don't want your bad players. And I don't know who the Predators have on their roster, who they could trade, who would be enticing to another team. You know, you mentioned, hey, what about Philip Forsberg? Well, Philip Forsberg has a full no movement clause. So if Philip Forsberg wants to stay here for the remainder of his career, they absolutely can. Now, one texter says they have cap space and picks. They need to go get an impact guy. I mean, that may be the asset they have at their disposal. They have 3 first-round picks. Now, it would be wise for them to maintain that 5th overall pick.
Which they will do, by the way.
But
they're not moving off of that.
But they have 2 later round, first-round picks from Tampa Bay and Vegas that they could trade. You know, they have, you know, I guess they have prospects they could trade. We got a texter asking if we had to bet right now, do you think Trotz will be picking at number 5 or will he be trading up? I did this exercise recently on our show. Since 2010, a top 5 overall pick in the NHL draft has changed hands 3 times. And all 3 instances involved being a part of a bigger trade involving a established player.
Yep.
One of the draft picks changed hands in the Erik Karlsson trade between San Jose and Ottawa.
Yep.
Another one changed hands in the Predators 3-way trade with Colorado and Ottawa that involved Matt Duchesne and Kyle Turris. The other involved the Phil Kessel trade from Boston to Toronto. Very rarely in the NHL do you see the type of trade that we saw on the first night of the NFL draft with the Browns and the Jags so that the Jags could take Travis Hunter.
Right.
You don't see that in the NHL. So my guess is that he's staying put at 5.
Yeah, I mean, the likelihood is they're picking 5. I mean, look, it is I guess a little bit different of a situation with San Jose at 2, right? Because they've had high draft picks and they've taken Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini at forward. And I think we all know that they need a defenseman. But if Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman, is off the board at number 1 to the Islanders, which he probably will be, we'll see. What does that influence San Jose to do after that? Like, if I was them, I'd probably just go ahead and take Michael Misa and then worry about all that stuff later. But that's just me. We'll see what they do. I think the likelihood is, to your point, though, that it's very difficult to move around in the top 5 of the NHL draft, and that they're going to be picking at number 5. And again, they may end up getting, the stars that you're talking about in terms of what's left in the playoffs. They may land one of those guys. Like, it may be, we may look back 10 years from now on the 2025 NHL draft and say, well, thank God they were awful that year because they got so-and-so. They got Anton Frondell or whoever they end up taking at number 5, and he ends up being a franchise-level player. The likelihood is whoever they draft at number 5, number 1, probably won't be here next year, and if they are, you're talking about an 18-year-old.
If it's James Hagens, right, I imagine he might be going back to college
exactly
next season. So, look, if you're a Predators fan thinking about next season, if you're looking for some sort of optimism, it's that all of these players did not forget how to score. And it was just a terrible season from a shooting luck standpoint. But this is why in the days after free agency last year, we were talking about expectations. And I said that the Predators' bare minimum for me was winning at least 2 rounds of the postseason. And I remember a few people looking at me a bit confused by that. And my point was, this team is old.
Yeah,
it's old. And if you want to take advantage of them while they still have good years left, you have to win sooner rather than later. And they completely blew it this past season. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there could be a player we're not even thinking about who could emerge as a trade target.
Sure.
But like, if you're a Predators fan crossing their fingers that the Predators are going to throw all of their money at Mitch Marner in free agency, I'm sorry, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, the bottom line is, they can still, I'm sure that Barry Trotz is going to try to make a couple of trades this summer, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. But he's also, it's been no secret, he's been trying to identify and land a top-level centerman for a couple of years now, and he hasn't been able to do it, frankly, just because those guys don't become available all that much. So are they going to become available this offseason?
I do want to get to this text quickly from Mike in Lebanon. It's incredible to see how many former Preds players are in the playoffs, which shows it's not just the players, it's the whole team and the coaching. The Preds were a long way off. I love Trotz, but I think he messed up this last year with his trade. So obviously, Mikael Granlund had the hat trick last night. Matt Duchene, who again has not scored yet in these playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of goals. He has points, but yes, he has 0 goals in 11 games. He has 5 assists.
Yep.
Colin Blackwell scored an overtime goal for the Stars earlier in the postseason. Victor Arvidsson is with the Oilers. Luke Schenn is with the Jets, but y'all didn't really love Luke Schenn, so don't try to take Luke Schenn now. Look what the Predators did by trading Luke Schenn. You've been wanting. You all wanted Luke Schenn out of here, and I don't blame you. I didn't really understand the signing to begin with. And there are other players. I'm obviously forgetting. I'm Calle Yarncroke playing for the Maple Leafs. You can miss me with that.
Yeah,
like, it's not making it. Like, I understand. This is something that we often do. Look at that player who used to play for my team. He's doing great over there. I mean, great is relative. Like, Granlund had a great game last night, and he's been good for the Stars.
Yep.
But it didn't work out here, and that's okay.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Mark Ross from the NFL Network will join us coming up next. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. We head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Mark Ross to the program of the NFL Network, which, by the way, the 2025 NFL schedule being revealed tonight at 7 o'clock Central Time on NFL Network. So make sure you're tuned in for that. Mark, good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. How about you?
Doing awesome, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. So, Mark, I'm curious for your perspective. Obviously, we've talked a ton about Cam Ward around here and the Titans going with him at number 1 overall. So what are your thoughts on Cam Ward and the situation that he is walking into with the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I really liked Cam Ward throughout the whole draft process this year. Yeah, I did him last year when he was thinking about coming out at Washington State, and I thought he just got so much better. Best decision he could have made for his career is going to Miami and playing it another year, because I thought he got so much better. Completely worthy of the top pick. If it was last year, this Cam Ward version, I would have had him third, actually. A lot draft talk about where he would have been, but I would have had him third behind Caleb and Jaden last year. So I think you're getting a legit player, a legit playmaker, a legit franchise quarterback who could have a similar effect to what Jaden Daniels did to the Commanders last year and what C.J. Stroud did with the Texans 2 years ago. So I think it should be exciting times there down in Tennessee.
What do you make of the quarterback competition in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones coming in? Obviously, Anthony Richardson, it has not gone well for him to this point, but do you think it's a real competition there? And what's your reaction going to be if they go with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback in Indy?
Are we calling that a competition, or are we just calling it the the worst man wins? Look, I really don't have any faith in either one of those guys. I wasn't particularly fond of either one when they came out because of a lot of flaws that I saw in both of their games that have only shown up still in the league. Daniel Jones has had a longer leash than Anthony has, and longer leash than anybody in the history of the NFL, and all the money that he made with the Giants keep doubling, tripling down on thinking he was suddenly going to turn it around. And then Anthony Richardson just looks like he has not improved whatsoever in his game. So whoever ends up winning the competition, if you call it, I don't think that team is a real threat to do anything. It'll be fun to watch them because they do have some players on that team, but overall, they're staring up from the bottom with those two guys.
Mark Ross of the NFL Network joining us on Robby and Rexrode. Mark, how critical to Cam Ward's success is Tony Pollard? Because you mentioned Jaden Daniels, the Commanders, they barely ran the ball, if I recall correctly, the year before Jaden Daniels arrived. The Commanders made it a point to get him a running game, and it worked incredibly well. So as we look to evaluate the success of Cam Ward, how important will Tony Pollard be in that?
Well, critical, but it's not just it's Calvin Ridley, and see if Tyler Lockett has anything left, and that offensive line, and Kevin Zeitler bringing him in, and those young fourth round offensive players that you drafted, how quickly that they can gel and develop with Cam. So it doesn't have to be Cam's a one man show. It's really the whole entire offense and the play calling as well to say, okay, we've got a foundation for him. We have infrastructure. We have dudes that are making some plays and being solid while he develops. And, maybe week one, he'll jump out there and look like an all pro, but until then, it's incumbent on the whole entire offense to perform at a high level. And I think it won't take long for Cam to really get going, much like we saw with Jaden last year, where game one, game two, you saw the flashes, you saw a little bit of inconsistencies. And then by, game 3 or 4, it was like, this guy is super legit. So I think Cam could have the same effect.
What are your thoughts on what the Titans did in the middle rounds of the draft? They brought in a couple of receivers, DK and Ayamaner. They drafted a tight end in Gunnar Helm. What do you see as the potential for that young pass-catching group?
Yeah, I really like that, where they seemed as if they had a game plan and a concerted effort where, okay, went Cam 1 and then went defense 2-3, and then in round 4, all 3 of those picks. I don't think that was a coincidence to say, okay, here's some tough dudes, some solid, maybe not superstars because you're not really getting that in the 4th round, but guys who I just call good football players, just know how to play, solid, dependable type of guys. So I think, right now, those rookie mini camps, all those guys growing together, I like the game plan. Whether they're turning out to be really good players, we don't know. But I like the game plan of, okay, we have some veterans that we brought in free agency we've had on the team, and now we'll bring some more young rookies in to hopefully grow in that system.
So, Mark, obviously, it was an incredible run of success in New England for 20 plus years with Brady and Belichick together, and now they've been trying to find themselves after that. Belichick's gone. You had 1 year of Gerard Mayo coming in, and now, as Titans fans are very familiar with, Mike Vrabel stepping into the fold in New England. What do you make of Vrabel, the fit in New England, and how well positioned he is with Drake May leading the way at quarterback to build that program, that thing back up in New England?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know Vrabel. I mean, the guy's a good coach. He made a lot out of, having Drake May be the best quarterback he's had. Let's just say that. So, and I like the stability of the infrastructure. I always talk about that, the foundation of the team, and practicing. I don't like the word culture. I like winning mindset. You bring a winning mindset, doing things the right way mindset to an organization, and I think he'll do that up there. And the way they, Drake May last year, talking about a one-man show. I mean, they had absolutely nothing up there in New England, and poor guy, where he did show the flashes, and now in the offseason, really being the free agency winners with the Milton Williams and Carlton Davises and all the guys they brought in, and then in the draft, okay, now let's go help our young quarterback. Starting out with Will Campbell and getting a receiver and the running back there in Travion Henderson. So I just think they're so much better, just talent-wise, number one, and then a huge step up in coaching. So I think New England really is a team to watch to make a huge leap. I'm picking them number 2 behind the Bills in the East.
Mark, last thing for you. Obviously, you had the Eagles win the whole thing last year, and you looked at their roster, and it was just really hard to identify a weakness with what they had. Do you feel like anybody has closed the gap in the NFC? And on the AFC side of things, it's been incredibly competitive. We know how many good quarterbacks are in the AFC, and yet Kansas City seems to be the one that always finds a way to break through and get to the Super Bowl at least. What do you make of kind of where things stand at the top of both conferences heading into this year?
Yeah, the Eagles will be in the mix, and whether they win it is just so hard to go back to back as we've seen, but they'll be in the mix. But the Commanders, I think, got a tremendously better as well, bringing in Debo and Tunsil, and it's another year of Jaden Daniels thriving. They were in the NFC Championship game far ahead of schedule. The Rams will be in the mix over there in the NFC. They gave the Eagles all they could handle in the playoff game in the snow, if people don't remember. And on the other side, the AFC, of course, the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. You just look at those three. Until someone knocks those three off, will be one of those three will be representing over on that side. And really those teams. I think the Chargers will be a lot better. Detroit, I forgot about Detroit, will be in the mix, and we'll see what Green Bay does if they can make another step. A little up and down, rocky year last year, so a lot of intriguing teams in that mix there. I think those really are the cream of the crop there, with, of course, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, and then over on the other side, the Eagles and Commanders and the Lions.
Well, Mark, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. Looking forward to the schedule reveal tonight on NFL Network, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sure thing. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Mark Ross from the NFL Network, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Going to be interesting to see when Mike Vrabel's coming to town tonight. We're going to find out today when that's happening.
You better not pout. You better not cry. You better not. Wait, I'm missing something here. Better not pout. You better not cry. Something.
Better not shout. I'm telling you why.
Yes.
You nailed that one. Really good stuff there from Vingan.
Vrabel Claus is coming to town.
I'm glad he at least finished it. 615-737-1025. Our phone number.
I don't sing a lot of Christmas carols.
615-737-1025. We'll react to what Mark Ross had to say there. Got a couple of your thoughts to get to on the text line as well, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, including a hot take about Mark Ross that we'll get to.
Probably not.
Coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. What are your thoughts on Cam Ward and the situation that he is walking into with the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I really liked Cam Ward throughout the whole draft process this year. Yeah, I did him last year when he was thinking about coming out at Washington State, and I thought he just got so much better. Best decision he could have made for his career is going to Miami and playing it another year, because I thought he got so much better. Completely worthy of the top pick. If it was last year, this Cam Ward version, I would have had him third, actually. A lot draft talk about where he would have been, but I would have had him third behind Caleb and Jaden last year. So I think you're getting a legit player, a legit playmaker, a legit franchise quarterback who could have a similar effect to what Jaden Daniels did to the Commanders last year and what C.J. Stroud did with the Texans 2 years ago. So I think it should be exciting times there down in Tennessee.
That's Mark Ross from the NFL Network on with us in the last segment. Glowing praise about Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Make sure you're tuning in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Memphis. Pregame at 11:50. First pitch at 12:05. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Mark Ross, big fan of Cam Ward. We just learned out of Vegas. Said he would have had him third in last year's draft behind Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels.
That's interesting. You don't often hear that. We did not hear that often in the lead up to the draft. Speaking of being a fan, Kenny in Spring Hill was not a fan of me forgetting the words to Santa Claus is coming to town. He texted in, after hearing the Santa song, I miss Rexrode. Well, Kenny,
wow,
you can pound sand, my friend.
Wow.
You can hear Rexrode at 3 o'clock with Kaharski, and then you can ask him to sing Santa Claus is coming to town. Though one texter did said Adam can try Vrabel, Vrabel, Vrabel in lieu of Dreidel, Dreidel.
Nice.
That bravo, unnamed texter. That was really good.
Again,
you should put your name on that.
Rexrode will be with Kuharski later today at 3 o'clock on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Can't wait for that.
That could be interesting.
That was a calculated move by Chase McCabe to give Paul Kuharski Jared Stillman's time slot for one day.
It was. We'll see how that goes.
Swimmingly, I'm sure.
A little bit later today. Did not sound like Mark Ross was a huge fan of Daniel Jones and/or Anthony Richardson.
No, I
if you want to call that a competition, you can.
I got that vibe.
God, whoever, I guess, sucks the least out of those two will get the job at Indianapolis. Not a ringing endorsement of what the Indianapolis
I did hear your
quarterback
riveting conversation the other day about Anthony Richardson's back tattoo.
Yeah.
Ian showed me a picture of it. Ouch. And I have 6 tattoos. I don't have a back tattoo.
Anesthesia for 7 hours.
I was under the impression that you weren't allowed to be sedated to get a tattoo.
I don't know.
You are not allowed to. Tattoo parlors will say you're not allowed to be tattooed if you're under the influence of something. It happens more often than you think. I'm sure.
I'm sure it does.
But I saw that, and what did Rexrode say? It was the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Something along those lines.
It's unbelievable the amount of things he had on his like he got done on that one sitting in his back.
I do want to give Kevin, it's Kev, or it just says Kev. I'm going to give Kev the credit for Vrabel to the tune of Dreidel.
We did have a question going back to our Barry Trotz conversation on the offer sheets and whether or not they could be an option for the Predators this offseason. So what do you make of that?
So one thing to remember when it comes to offer sheets. So you need draft pick compensation. So if you sign a player to an offer sheet, depending on how much I believe it's how much the cap hit is, there is a certain draft pick compensation you have to give back to the team that you're poaching that player from. The draft picks have to be your own.
Yeah.
So although the Predators have 3 first-round draft picks, 2 of them are not theirs originally. So in this scenario, the Predators could not use the Lightning's and Golden Knights' first-round pick for a draft pick for an offer sheet. They would have to own their own draft pick.
Well, and I asked Barry Trotz, I believe, heading into last off season. It was either last off season or, frankly, it could have been his first off season. I don't remember which one. About offer sheets and whether or not the Predators could involve themselves in that. And he didn't say that like he would never do it. But he did pretty much say that he doesn't like off sheets. Like, it's basically what he said. So I'm not saying that the Predators, if the right opportunity presents itself this offseason, won't go try to sign somebody to an offer sheet. It's not the first thing that Barry Trotz is looking at.
And in theory, right, the difference between signing an unrestricted free agent and tendering an offer sheet to a restricted free agent is that restricted free agents are younger.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that younger player
right.
versus paying a late 20-something, early 30-something. That's how you do it. The St. Louis Blues did it last year. They took 2 restricted free
it worked
agents
very well for them
from the Edmonton Oilers,
yeah.
Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, and it did work quite well for the Blues. So, I wonder if more teams, now that they've seen what happens with offer sheets, if they take that. But yeah, like I imagine the Predators will be better next season because, frankly, they can't get much worse than they were this season.
Yep.
But I'm still unconvinced that right now, there's still a long way to go in this offseason, that they'll be a playoff team next season.
So your final guess, where it's NFL schedule release day, how many primetime games are the Titans going to get?
I said 3.
Should we care?
I said no. The answer is no, but I'll still answer your question anyway. I said 3. I think the Titans end up on Thursday Night Football twice, and you can, that is technically a primetime game, but you know how Thursday night, it's not on the level of Monday night and Sunday night. Or like the exclusive afternoon window on Sundays.
Yeah.
I will say 2 Thursday nighters and part of the Monday Night Football doubleheader.
I'm going 1, and I think there's a chance of 0. That's where I'm going. Now, I know they have the number 1 overall pick.
I
so
think they're gonna
one.
have at least 1 because of Cam.
I think that'll probably get them 1, but
yes.
I don't think it will be more than that. We'll see.
Now, who are they going to play in that 1? If you had to guess,
Kansas City. I don't know.
The Borgonzi Bowl.
Yeah, it could be. Could I see them? Could they maybe do like a Vrabel Thursday night game with him coming back to Nashville? Maybe, but my guess would be like Kansas City or maybe San Francisco, something like that.
Apparently, Caleb says that 4 artists worked on Anthony Richardson's tattoo at the same time.
That seems like that would be counterproductive. That's just, I don't know. Look, I'm not a tattoo expert, so I don't know.
No, that's crazy, man. One texter says, how many times did the Titans or the Predators wind up playing on Comedy Central this year? Well, unintentionally. It will be comedy, perhaps.
See how it goes. It is, like I said to begin the show, one of the most fascinating days of the sporting calendar. And now, it's different this year. You got the whole TV release tonight on NFL Network. So I'm sure that people will be tuned in for that and ready for the schedule. Now, look, the other part of this is like games are already leaking out.
Yeah, they're already starting to trickle.
If you're an Eagles fan, you already know a third of your schedule.
The Chiefs too, maybe.
Yeah, the Chiefs, like all these Chiefs and Eagles games.
I think 5 or 6 Eagles games.
Like I already know that like
Dallas
the Packers
at least twice.
Packers are playing the Bears in Week 16, and now it just flashed across the NFL Network screen that they're playing the Lions on the road in Week 14. So, like, by the time tonight comes around, you may know like half the league's schedule at that point.
And again, it's been reported that the Titans will open the season on the road at Denver.
That is correct.
So keep that in mind.
Right. Also, make sure you check out Nashville's best deal this week, Bavarian Beer House, located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Adam Vidgen, thank you for being with us today.
It's
and
my
you're going
pleasure.
to the afternoons tomorrow.
I will. I will be on from 3 to 6 tomorrow with Jake Lyman. So 3rd different time slot in 4 days for yours truly.
We are back to normal next week.
We are back to normal on Friday.
Correct. Yes, Jared will be back.
Because Jared, for some reason, takes a week off and then comes back for 1 day. I don't get it. What a strange guy.
That does it for us today. Chase and Big Joe is up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.